Hello, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Here's what we're looking at.
Wage theft is theft. No different from, if somebody broke into your house and took something.
Paramedics and EMTs accuse a private ambulance company of wage theft.
A disturbing rise in attacks on postal workers has the letter carriers union calling for better protection.
The fundamentals of policing is that the people are the police and the police are the people.
A preview of tomorrow night's Latino Voices. Hear what community members are saying about the selection of Larry Snelling as Chicago Police Superintendent.
And a singer-songwriter from Honduras gets by with a little help from his friends in Chicago.
And now to some of today's top stories. Jurors hear more wiretapped phone calls in the perjury and obstruction of justice trial against Tim Mapes, who was chief of staff to Michael Madigan. In one of the calls between Mapes and former Madigan confidant Mike McLean, the two are discussing how to inform former state representative Lou Lang he should step down amid sexual harassment allegations. Mapes is accused of repeatedly making false statements to a grand jury that was investigating McLean, Madigan, and ComEd.
More than 1,000 former Northwestern University athletes have signed a letter defending the school's culture and condemning hazing. The group includes 277 former football players and 4 managers who say while the allegations are troubling, they, quote, do not represent or define the overall athletics culture at Northwestern. The Big Ten University faces more than a dozen lawsuits alleging sexual abuse by teammates and racist comments by coaches. You can visit our website to check out a timeline of allegations and investigations into the hazing scandal.
If you run a local business, Cook County wants to help you figure out how to reduce your environmental impact. The county is announcing $10 million for the Businesses Reducing Impact on the Environment, or BRIGHT program. $4 million will help provide on-site assessments of businesses to find ways to reduce energy and water uses or reduce use of toxic chemicals, among other changes. Another $6 million will help businesses implement recommended changes. For more on how to apply, you can visit our website.
And more folks are back to work in Illinois as the State Department of Employment Security says the number of payroll jobs has increased enough to pass pre-pandemic levels. The state also says its unemployment rate remains at 4%, still the lowest level since the onset of the pandemic. The industry sectors that showed the greatest gains in July were educational and health services, as well as trade, transportation, and utilities.
Yesterday was Illinois Democrats. Today, it's the state's Republicans' turn to take the podium at the Illinois State Fair. The party finds itself shut out of major statewide offices and in superminority status in the legislature. Speakers bashed Democrats like Governor J.B. Pritzker for policies they've enacted and exhorted conservatives, that is, to get more active and revive the party.
Illinois Republicans support free speech. What a radical idea. Parents' rights, another radical idea. School choice, safe neighborhoods, another radical idea. Reliable and affordable energy. Who thought that would ever be radical? Lower property taxes, the right to bear arms. They don't want to do the hard work of taking illegal guns off the street. They want to take guns from law-abiding citizens. Let's not let them do it.
And still to come in the program, what's driving the disturbing rise in postal worker attacks?
But first, why a local ambulance company was accused of wage theft. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Paramedics and EMTs are facing illegal paycheck deductions for on-the-job traffic tickets. That's the surprising claim in a class-action wage theft lawsuit just filed against Elite Ambulance, a large private ambulance firm based in Orland Park that works around the Chicago area. Chicago Tonight's Nick Blumberg is the first to report on this story and is here with details on those charges of stolen pay. Nick.
Well, Brandis, we've all seen an ambulance racing down the street trying to get someone critically ill to the hospital in time. Now, naturally, sometimes those ambulances are picked up on a red light or speed camera. In a suit filed yesterday in Cook County Court, 3 employees of Elite say the company has been deducting the cost of moving violations from their paychecks without their consent.
It seems like their justification for doing it is just that they don't want to have to pay or be bothered to challenge these tickets. These are paramedics, EMTs, these are people who are engaging in life-saving work. Obviously, very famously, we know that ambulances need to sometimes move a little faster than the rate of traffic. So it's not something that should come as a surprise to the company.
The 2 EMTs who are named plaintiffs in the suit say they were told they had to agree to the deduction after the fact and refused. The 3rd plaintiff, a paramedic, says he wasn't notified at all.
Nick, how much money are we talking about here?
Well, the plaintiffs say the tickets that they got on the job were for $100 each. Attorney Ramson Cannon says while $100 is still significant depending on how much money you make, relatively small amounts like these are one of the reasons that make cases of alleged wage theft so tough.
Unscrupulous employers rely on the idea that, people aren't going to be willing to go to court to recover $100, $200, a few $100 that's been stolen from them. That's why the class actions are so important, because not only does it make sure that everybody gets made whole, in this case it could end up being thousands, tens of thousands, who knows, it really depends on the size of the class that's certified, but also that there are penalties.
Nick, he mentioned that this is a class action. How many people would that involve?
Well, Elite's website says it has 2,000 employees and 175 ambulances working in the Chicago area and Northwest Indiana. So if the judge in this case does certify it as a class action, it could be a very large group indeed. Paramedic Pablo Acevedo is one of the plaintiffs. He says when he was younger and new with the company, he was upset about the deductions but didn't push back. But he told me that he's since talked with many other employees who say this practice goes back years. And Acevedo thinks Elite is picking up the pace. He told me, quote, over the past 6 months, I've seen a huge increase in these deduction waivers being forced onto employees who they believe are the probable drivers of the vehicle at that time. It became really aggravating for me and a few other paramedics who, as we've gotten older, have realized that this is just not fair practice.
Nick, how did this lawsuit get started?
Well, the paramedics and EMTs who got in touch with the man who's now their attorney were discussing the alleged wage theft during an organizing drive. Last month, workers at Elite filed for a union election with the National Labor Relations Board. Paramedic Acevedo told me they've had workplace problems like management not properly stocking company vehicles with necessary equipment or medication. And he said low pay means many first responders are struggling to make ends meet. He said, quote, the current average pay in this field is already so low, and without unionization, emergency health workers are never going to be able to make the money that they deserve. A lot of workers are forced to work 75 hours a week, sometimes 40 hours of overtime, just to be able to afford having an apartment in Chicago. Attorney Cannon says whether it's unionization or legal action, employees coming together at a workplace helps people exercise their rights.
That first step of talking to your coworkers openly is so important to making sure that, first of all, you don't just feel alone, but also that you understand that, these are systematic things that you can get remedies for.
And Brandis, we should note that Elite Ambulance did not immediately respond to our request for comment.
Okay, I'm sure you'll keep your eye on it for us. Nick Blumberg, thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, the alarming and increasing threat to letter carriers. Stay with us.
Attacks on mail carriers are on the rise. According to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, robberies targeting mail carriers increased 78% in 2022. Just this month, a 52-year-old mail carrier was shot and critically wounded on the northwest side in an attempted robbery in the middle of the afternoon. Here's what Spencer Block of the U.S. Postal Inspection Service told us about the increasing number of attacks.
The threat against our letter carriers has evolved over time, especially since COVID. Our strategy to combat that and to investigate those crimes has evolved as well. You know, the main tenet of the inspection service is to investigate crimes that affect postal customers, employees, and infrastructure. And the biggest thing that our agency does and takes seriously is the safety of all postal employees. It's not just letter carriers, it's everybody.
And joining us now to share her thoughts is Elise Foster, president of Branch 11 of the National Association of Letter Carriers, which represents over 4,800 letter carriers in Chicago and surrounding suburbs. Hi, Elise. Thanks for being back with us. So you heard that quote there. Do you think that the Postal Service is doing all it can do right now to protect postal workers?
No, I don't think a lot is being done. But what can be done, I'm not sure, but something needs to be done, and we're not seeing it because we keep getting attacked.
And what are you hearing from some of your members? How many robberies and assaults have you heard about or have they faced over the last several months?
Well, I don't know the exact numbers. I know from August to this 2022 to 2023, we're up to about 93 reported attempts of assault on letter carriers. And my members are scared. They're scared to come to work. They're scared to go out on a route. They don't know what's going to happen. You know, if they're going to be the next victim, they're scared.
This has been an issue for a few years, although it's skyrocketed, as we mentioned in the last year. Do you sense like something new here? Is there a new threat? Is there a new reason why this is happening?
We don't know what the new threat is and why the alarming numbers are reaching up so high, but we are under attack. And, you know, that was unheard of for a letter carrier to be, you know, attacked while in the performance of their duties. You know, it was unheard of. Hands off postal workers. So now we don't know what's turning the trend to these people want to attack the letter carriers. But I haven't gotten the reports on, you know, an investigation from the inspection service as to why they want, you know, these keys.
And just explain for our viewers what you're talking about when you're talking about the keys.
Well, the attack on the keys is of what they take from the letter carriers, and that's equipment that they need to do their job to make deliveries.
So those are those special keys that can open mailboxes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, let's hear what Spencer Block told us earlier today about the motivation for these robberies.
These robberies are being committed to, you know, take or attempt to take what we receive and send out in the mail every day, which is, you know, checks for bills or, you know, credit cards, important documents, things that facilitate business. So I don't think that these robberies are taking place because someone just has the drive to either hurt somebody or the thrill to take from them, right? I mean, ultimately, there's a financial motive behind it.
Is that what you see, Elise, that most of these robbers want to get their hands on packages or letters that have a check in it or some kind of bill or something like that?
But yes, you heard it from the inspector, and I believe that's some of the reasons why they are attacking the letter carriers for that key that they use to make the deliveries.
And so knowing this, what do you think can be done to make letter carriers less of a target?
Well, first, we are encouraged that the city council is moving in the right direction to hopefully pass this ordinance that's concerning cluster boxes. That's one thing. But the first step, starting times. You know, we want to get the carriers off the street, you know, get them out there early. You know, we met with the postal with the postal postmaster, asking for some things that we need to help to keep carriers safe, and hopefully that they will react to that and to answer our requests. So we will meet with them next week. But we want earlier starting times. That's a start. It's a start.
Earlier starting times so that folks are not working after dark. So explain more what you were just talking about, cluster boxes in the city council ordinance. What does that entail?
Well, that entails that when they do new construction, that these boxes, they just can't put them up anywhere throughout the city. They have to put us inside buildings, and it helped to devalue the key. Even the constituents, they have to come outside and walk to mailboxes and potentially danger, you know, to get their mail. When we want to go door to door, we are letter carriers and we go door to door. And then in those instances where those high rises have multiple units inside, we want those boxes inside because we're going to stand for a very long time to make those delivery in those multi-unit buildings. So that's a start as well.
I see what you're saying. So when they're outside, you're standing there for a while, you're stuffing envelopes in there, and it's a bigger threat.
Correct.
All right, what about staffing? Is staffing still an issue? I mean, that's something that we've talked with the Letter Carriers Union about for many years.
Yes, that's an ongoing issue still, but the Postal Service is hiring, letter carriers each and every week. I've been going over meeting new carriers that's come on board and on the job. So we are understaffed from COVID, so we get those numbers back up. But we just find the right pick because everybody can't be letter carriers. And what they're facing with out there today, some of them just, they leave the job and say they can't do it. They'll quit.
We mentioned the shooting at the top of this segment of one of your letter carriers. Do you know the condition of that person?
Well, yes, he's in good spirits. He was in surgery. He had another surgery that he had to go through. But he's in good spirits and recovering at home. And thank for all the prayers and the well wishes that he's receiving. But it shouldn't have happened to him. He's a good guy, just performing his duties, delivering mail.
As every letter carrier is, and stay safe out there. Our thanks to you, Elise Foster, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And up next, envisioning public safety under Chicago's next top cop. But first, we take a look at the weather.
Chicago is set to have a new top cop. Pending City Council confirmation, Chicago Police veteran Larry Snelling will take over as Chicago Police Superintendent. Tomorrow on Latino Voices, host Alex Hernandez talks with community members about their hopes for the new superintendent. Here's a bit of that conversation, beginning with a question to Pilsen community activist and artist William Guerrero.
What role do you see police leadership playing in the public safety in Chicago communities?
It's just a part of the public safety, right? I believe that police do play a role in public safety, and for some of us, I think that also community members also play a role in public safety, right? I believe that collaboration amongst each other can actually lead us to have a safer neighborhood, right? With all the politics or if everything going back and forth, the constant argument, I don't think that's going to take us anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think the first step, right, is collaboration, right?
Do you think more collaboration is needed between community leaders and the police department?
I think collaboration is needed overall, right? Between the politicians, the community leaders, what we have right now. We have to work with the puzzles that we have and fit them in correctly. And so we need every single resource possible to make sure that our kids are safe, that our families are safe, that everyone is safe.
Thank you. Michelle, going with you now, you've actually said that you would like to see more engagement in your community as well from police leadership. Can you give us an idea of what that might look like?
Sure. So we have great officers. There are great officers in our community currently. There are community engagement for us would be, police officers being present, making themselves available to get to know the community residents, in our neighborhood, the stakeholders, and continuing that partnership, right? It's a two-way street. We all, as William said, we all have to work together to create a safer city, a safer community. We all have the same goal. We all want to feel safe, right? And what better way than to engage the community residents, right? Folks that already live in the community, different stakeholders, community organizations. All of us, if we were able to come together, create a committee or some sort, in addition to CAPS, I think it'd be great.
What was your reaction to Snelling's appointment?
I thought it was good. I thought, I was really happy that he's from Chicago. He's from Inglewood. He went to Chicago Public Schools. So he really understands kind of the make and fabric of a Chicagoan, right? And what it's like to live in inner city and to be faced with many challenges. So I was happy with his appointment.
Andres, Snelling actually talked a little bit about Mayor Brandon Johnson during his press conference. We actually have something of what he had to say. Let's listen.
To have someone at City Hall who's willing to listen and willing to understand what our officers are dealing with on a daily basis, to understand how our officers are running into very violent situations and risking their lives. it is extremely important to have someone, a mayor, who sits at City Hall and understand that.
Andres, do you think Snelling and Mayor Johnson will work well together?
I believe so. That's the mayor's mandate. I mean, Snelling's a great guy for that position. Not to take anything away from the runner-up, which was Novales. I know him as well. Great leaders, both of them. And I hope and pray that there's this new surge of interest, of leadership, of working with the community.
And you can see that entire conversation tomorrow night at 5:30 on WTTW and online at WTTW.com/news. Paris.
Brandis, in his native Honduras, he contributed to one of the biggest hits in Latin music. In his adopted hometown of Chicago, he keeps a modest profile, working as a custodian in churches and playing occasional gigs to support his family. A group of Chicago musicians has helped turn the spotlight once again on singer-songwriter Carlos Barahona, who goes by the stage name Charlie Baran. Producer Mark Vitale met the band Radio Free Honduras in Little Village.
I met Charlie on the music scene here in Chicago when I first moved here in the early 2000s, and I just admired him as a guitar player. He was amazing. And eventually I became part of a band that he was playing in, and so got to play with him and got to know him a little bit. And then years later, you know, I found out that he was a singer-songwriter himself. And that's when we started this band, when I realized he had this whole career that I had no idea about.
The band they started is Radio Free Honduras. Charlie Baran had a long career as a musician, a singer-songwriter, and a band leader in his native Honduras. We spoke with the self-taught guitarist through a translator, his saxophone player. He told us how he met his bandmate and musical partner, Dan Abu Abzi.
Dan approached Charlie and asked him, we like your music, would you be down to put a band together and record some of your music? And he said that's how it started. He never would have done anything or gotten out if it wouldn't have been for Dan coming to approach him like that.
In 1991, Charlie contributed vocals and guitar to a song that topped the Latin Billboard charts. He left Honduras, he says, after being harassed by local government officials. A circuitous route brought him to Chicago by way of Miami. Now he works at 2 local Catholic churches and plays the occasional show with Radio Free Honduras. We asked the 72-year-old about recent health setbacks.
No tan bien.
He told us his health isn't so good, but with the help of God, he'll go on.
I loved his music and I loved his style, so that was the first thing, but then quickly I realized that he needed help. Basically being a marginalized part of our society right now as he is, there was no way he was going to be able to navigate the music business on his own. I mean, it's hard enough for someone with every opportunity and every advantage to make it in the music business. So I knew that I could help him, and I decided that I wanted to help him. Charlie writes all the music. He usually brings to me a pretty much finished song, and I just help with instrumentation and putting it together and producing recordings and that sort of thing.
He said that he feels very privileged and very grateful to be playing with musicians of different calibers that have been part of the bands over time. They have kind of accepted what he plays and appreciated what he plays, and so he's always kind of learning and appreciating from those who are around him. He is certainly happy to be out here making music,
meeting new musicians and recording new stuff. So we're all happy about that.
For Chicago Tonight, this is Mark Vitale.
Great music, perfect for summer. Radio Free Honduras plays live tonight outdoors at 3737 West Lawrence Avenue. Hey, right around here. And on Saturday, they play at 6 p.m. at the Glenwood Avenue Arts Festival in Rogers Park. They're also recording an album they hope to have ready in the fall.
Right around here, so that means Paris has plans tonight, right?
I
Like,
guess
now
I'll
you know
have to
what you
run right over there
what
after
you
this.
can do.
Yeah.
We've got the good weather for it and everything, and you never know. The famous musician next door, he's the janitor at a couple of churches, as Mark reported in this
Absolutely.
package. That's very impressive. And that is our show for this Thursday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news.
And you can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 for Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, 7 o'clock for the Weekend Review, and then 10 o'clock for Chicago Tonight Black Voices.
Got a full slate. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe. And how about some more music from Radio Free Honduras?
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm pleased to give back to the community through numerous charitable initiatives.